Live and hello Dublin Mind Body Experience and welcome to our little live I'm Prema, this is my partner Ajit and we're from Full Circle Hemp and we're going to be speaking a little bit, I've got a box coming up there, we're going to be speaking a little bit about full spectrum CBD and what we mean by full spectrum, what that entails and how that interacts with the body and in particular the endocannabinoid system of the body, which is, what we're targeting when we're taking CBD.
Cool. I'm just going to have a look on here to see if there's anyone joining us. Where do you see people joining us?
I'm not even sure.
We're
I
viewers.
think it comes here.
Right, okay, so viewer insights.
Great.
So, yeah, have we got anyone on? We don't.
But it'll be on our page.
So,
we will chat anyway.
We're going to chat to open space. Yeah, so the whole full spectrum areas for us is really important. We've always been like big advocates of full spectrum. And, there's so much CBD in the market these days, and there's a lot of confusion. There's also confusion about the milligrams per bottle. So we'll address a couple of things here. But primarily, what does full spectrum mean? So when you're extracting whatever way you extract CBD, in the extraction process, at a certain point, you can remediate it and remove certain aspects of it, and primarily what that is the THC. And in that filtration process, the more you filter that down, the more you separate it and just isolate it, you end up with pure cannabidiol, which is CBD isolate. So the way it normally goes is you have your full spectrum, which has a good range of cannabinoids, a good range of terpenes. It means it's not being fully filtered, it's not being separated, it's more the plant alive as a whole. Broad spectrum, you're more so decarboxylating, you're isolating it more, you're reducing. The main component in that is there's a lack of CBDA, which is the acid form of CBD. So when you heat...
Yeah, I was just going to say what decarboxylation means. It's a heating process that turns the acid forms of the compound into, so CBDA, for example, CBD acid into CBD. So by heating it, it changes that acid form into CBD.
Yeah, and with full spectrum, you can...
Hi, Freddie.
You can also go through the extraction process, and then you can add cannabinoids to it. You can separate them and put CBDA over there, CBG over here, CBC over here, and you can separate it all and then integrate it back in again. But for the most part, what we see within the industry, and certainly there are areas where you have to address in terms of legislation, in terms of legality. We have a kind of conflict here within the European Union. CBD is considered to be a food supplement, but within Ireland there's the grey area because we've got all the health food shops, and to varying degrees, primarily they have broad spectrum and isolate. There are some full spectrum products in there. There's certainly a new development in the industry which is cold pressed. But the problem with cold pressed is there are some really good companies that are extracting and getting as much of the different cannabinoids and terpenes out. But also what we've seen with certain brands in the industry, not much CBD in there. Because when you're using a CO2 extraction, which is a very cold extraction, and it's a gentle extraction or an ethanol extraction, it pulls everything out of the plant. So you've got much more to play with in terms of your cannabinoid content and your terpene content. So full spectrum for us is the gold standard. It always has been. So when we're dealing with customers and trying to get out there and kind of reach people and say, look, This is a big different than a broad spectrum. Broad spectrum may only have one or two cannabinoids in it, and it may have a kind of okay terpene profile. But as I say, in the filtration process, to get it to be a broad spectrum, which is normally THC free, the effectiveness of that broad spectrum is reduced. It's not that it doesn't work; it's just not as effective as full spectrum.
Do you want to say why, what impact the different cannabinoids have on the different receptors in
Yeah,
the body?
yeah. So when we reduce it again, then in that reductionist, then you end up with CBD isolate. Yet again, CBD isolate works, but it's not as effective.
Mm.
The reason full spectrum, primarily what we have and what we cater for, which is a large amount of CBDA in there, and a lot of beta carotene, which is an amazing terpene. With the endocannabinoid system, what we have is we have lock and key relationships with the endocannabinoid system. So your first receptor in the endocannabinoid system, THC binds directly with as a lock and key relationship.
And you don't need much in there. It's just it can be just a little whiff of it if you like, and that's still going to lock into those receptors.
So in that process of that lock and key, it binds directly, and then interestingly with the terpene, beta carotene, that binds directly with the second receptor because CBD doesn't bind directly as a lock and key relationship with the endocannabinoid system. There's a lot of talk about the endocannabinoid system. There's a lot of talk about CBD, but it doesn't have that lock and key relationship. And the reason that those two components are really important because when you have something that has a lock and key relationship with those receptors, basically what you end up having is what's called in the industry the entourage effect. So it synergistically allows for CBD to piggyback on those other lock and key molecules that are directly connecting with the endocannabinoid system. So when when that takes place, everything's working more effectively than a more isolated product, and that's why full spectrum is so incredible. Now, what is the endocannabinoid system? Well, in brief, we have within us a system that governs the whole physiology of the body. And with that, we endogenously, which means we make within our own cannabinoids. But like the human body is a kind of a pharmacy of sorts. We're always creating new molecules and new our own supplementation is happening within the body, and it's releasing different endorphins and different chemicals into the body, and the endocannabinoid system is no different. It's releasing these cannabinoids into the system, but for whatever reason we get compromised, stress, autoimmune, lack of exercise, lack of healthy diet. What's happening is that the endocannabinoid system is getting compromised, and it can actually get into a deficiency, and in that deficiency we're not regulating our endocannabinoid system because it's not self-governing itself. So what we end up having to do is to reach out for cannabinoids. And cannabinoids weren't so available within the industry, within lifestyle, up until about 5 or 6 years ago. They were through cannabis and cannabis consumption, but they would have been through various different hemp products and hemp oils and stuff like that, which you have your omegas as well. So to now have supplementation that can actually boost your endocannabinoid system and develop wellness and health and optimize the endocannabinoid system, because the endocannabinoid system primary purpose is to create balance, is to create homeostasis. So that's why full spectrum works so effectively. It's just so much more synergistically aligned with our own endocannabinoid system and our own ability to just bind and connect and start talking. It's like the cannabinoids start talking to each other.
I kind of think of it a bit like an ecosystem. So a full spectrum product is its own ecosystem because you have pretty much all of the different constituents of that plant, and they're coming together in one product, in a full spectrum product. And then that is interacting with the ecosystem of the body, of the endocannabinoid system. When you start to take aspects out of that ecosystem in either a broad spectrum or an isolate product, that ecosystem is then not functioning to its in its optimum kind of way. And so that synergistic relationship with the endocannabinoid system, with the greater ecosystem of the body, is not in full kind of synergy. Um, yeah, I quite like that analogy
Yeah, no,
actually.
that's a good
Kind
one.
of came.
I like that myself.
I want to say something as well about the endocannabinoid system and endocannabinoid and cannabinoid deficiency. So what research is kind of bringing to light increasingly, and there's more and more research in this area, particularly coming out of Israel, is that we're seeing certain autoimmune diseases actually being shown to be an endocannabinoid deficiency. Now, there is an argument that we were getting cannabinoid supplementation historically for thousands of years through feeding hemp to our cattle and sheep and the like. And so those cannabinoids we were getting through our meat intake and through, you know,
Dairy.
and dairy, etc. And that's become deficient over the last.
Well, we ate a lot more hemp.
We did.
We,
It was
we,
much more.
we were harvesting hemp as a food crop.
And a source of fibre and
everything like that.
Yeah. So it's interesting that given the lifestyle and the environment that we kind of currently live in, the autoimmune diseases are on the rise. And here we have a plant presenting itself in this new form as CBD supplementation, and particularly in a full spectrum way, to deal with those issues potentially. And certainly that's what the research is kind of showing us. And the other thing I wanted to kind of just point to is one of the things that I find incredible about CBD is the way it interacts with certain enzymes in our body, particularly which is an enzyme that metabolizes anandamide. Now, anandamide is an endocannabinoid, so we produce it ourselves within our systems, and that is responsible for the kind of feel-good factor. And what we're seeing through research is that people that suffer from depression and anxiety often have elevated amounts of FAAH. So that is metabolizing the anandamide that we produce much faster than we would like it to. CBD comes in and it inhibits that enzyme. So that enables us to have more anandamide in the system, which can only be a good thing. So it's interesting how different aspects of a full spectrum product will interact with the endocannabinoid system and the body in different kind of ways. And as I was saying before, in that ecosystem, as soon as you start subtracting elements out of that, you're just not getting the full entourage effect. You're not getting that synergistic relationship of ecosystem within ecosystem.
You know, and there's the aspect of creating consumer products that look right, that taste right, and all of that stuff. And, you know, sometimes nature provides us with something that might be a little bit spicy or might be a little bit bitter. Fortunately, with our full spectrum, you know, that's not the case. There's a tiny little spiciness in it, but it's, you know, one grows to enjoy the flavor of it. But you know, with isolated products and then they're full of maybe unnatural flavors or, you know, broad. It's like, it's nearly like you're creating this kind of, you're moving away from nature instead of celebrating nature in its perfection. You know, that's kind of our catchphrase, designed by nature, infused with love. It's like nature does all the work for you, and you end up with this amazing, raw, beautiful product that is absolutely alive and ready to be absorbed because, as I said, we endogenously make cannabinoids. So we straight through the blood-brain barrier, straight into the absorption, you know, and then that full spectrum being the most important part because it creates that entourage effect, it creates that synergy. You know, the whole industry, you know, what will happen is you'll have a kind of a more natural, a more alive, you know, people that are closer to the plant or closer in their relationship with cannabis and hemp. And then there are the businesses that are looking for a product and looking to market something. Now, look, it's all good and it's all getting out there and people becoming aware of the amazing things that CBD can do. But we've always been big advocates of getting as most natural and alive product to the end user. And we see, we're kind of hemmed in here from making medical claims, but we see, go to our Trustpilot reviews, over 200 reviews on there, just all 5 stars, all people seeing the benefits of full spectrum. That's really what we're about, is just to be able to continue to do that and bring the incredible properties of what hemp and cannabis provide for people's well-being. It's an industry that not only is it so environmentally positive, there are so many uses, so many, like plastics building, animal feed, the list goes on in terms of what hemp
really easy to grow, doesn't need pesticides, fixes nitrogen in the soil.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a no-brainer really for us in terms of it being in an industry and supporting something that is sustainable. And
there are various ways that the industry can go, and there are the EU deemed CBD to be a food, and that's going into further legislation in June and July, and then we have the novel food, which we also have our sub-license in for that. So the industry is going in a relatively positive direction. Ireland is still has a ways to go to implement a fully regulated system, which involves novel and involves dealing with the Misuse of Drug Act. So, CBD in the hemp industry and cannabis is definitely going in the right direction. It's just been very slow from prohibition, when it was demonized and made to be, hemp was used for everything up until I think it was 1940s.
no, earlier,
even earlier. Yeah, I mean, hemp has been used for so long, and it's in a renaissance at the moment. It's coming back into so many ways, and we're in the industry now 5 years, and we really are such big advocates to be able to support. We also provide white label for people and wholesale for people, and
consultations. I think
that's big.
If you have any questions or any, you just want to chat, then give us a call and be in contact through Facebook or on email, info@fullcirclehemp.com. You can contact us through that, or through our contact page on the website, fullcirclehemp.com. And we'll take you through everything and have a chat and see what your needs are.
Yeah, it's really important, when we have the opportunity. Obviously, if someone goes to the website and they buy directly, then they have to kind of sign our terms and conditions, and then they're kind of looking after themselves. But we get a huge amount of people contacting us for, well, I'm on this medication, on that medication. And we're, to be clear, we're not medical healthcare practitioners. But what we do is we will give you our knowledge base on what the contraindications are. And then we say, look, go to your doctor, talk to your doctor, have a dialogue with them. And a lot of the time we get doctors referring us, but we also get doctors going, oh, wow, that's great. We've done the work for the doctor, and then he can go yay or nay. So that's been a huge thing for us, and we love that dialogue with customers and clients, because then they can make an informed decision how they want to go.
And it means we develop relationships with you guys, and that's kind of ongoing. So we're almost alongside you in your journey with CBD for whatever reason, while you're supplementing with it. That's part of the joy of kind of being in the industry, is actually being alongside you in the journey, and the privilege that is to walk that path with you guys. Yeah.
So that kind of feels like we're reaching the end here. Yeah, please feel free. You can reach us, fullcirclehemp.com, Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Yeah, and it's a privilege and pleasure talking with you, and we will probably be on another couple of events with the Dublin Mind Body Experience, and shout out to the Dublin Mind Body Experience crew. Whoop, whoop.
Thank you, Freddie.
Thank you, Freddie.
And I hope everyone's out enjoying the sunshine,
which we're about to do.
Yeah. All right. Lovely to be with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.